Welcome back to another episode of Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, with your host, Ben Belden. If you're new here or you're finding me here and you want to follow on Twitter, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that Twitter handle is @RealBBelden. If you're coming to us from either an audio stream or somewhere else, find us on YouTube, markrogerstv.com. Scroll on over, like, subscribe, share, all of that stuff for the YouTube channel, so that the YouTube channel can continue to grow and we can do some more of this live content like we like to do. We are live right now, so if we have people join into the live show, we'll take comments. We might take calls. If not, obviously catch us later on a playback or find the audio version pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. You can find the audio version. You would be looking for the Under the Dome podcast, kind of the the resurrection of the Under the Dome podcast, if you will. That was my former show, using that audio stream to kind of put some of this audio out there, as well as a live YouTube version. We'd love to have you in all places, by the way. So go ahead and subscribe wherever you are, whatever you're comfortable. And like I say, if you want to take part in some of these live things, make sure you're going over to markrogerstv.com. Scroll on over, subscribe to the Notre Dame specific channel over there. That's where we're always live. Sometimes we simulcast on the main channel. Sometimes it's just here on the Notre Dame channel, as we are tonight. So anyway, talking some Notre Dame football again. And, so today is Sunday as I'm recording this, Sunday night. Sunday Night Football is on in the background. And so Sunday night, as we record this, a little later than normal, to be honest with you. I try to get on most of the time about 7:30, 7:45 the day after Notre Dame games on Sunday night, so I don't have to compete with Sunday Night Football. Today I'm a little late for some personal reasons, but wanted to make sure we got on. So here's an observation that I've made about this particular game. Now 24 or so-ish hours after the conclusion of the game. And this, by the way, I've had an opportunity to listen to a couple of, Notre Dame fan type shows and things today. It seems like we're all in agreement. I'm not saying anything that anybody else isn't saying here, that this particular win over UNLV felt just, it wasn't a stressful watching experience by any means. However, it was not an enjoyable watching experience by any means. And like I say, I think if you listen to any Notre Dame show, whether it's been today on Sunday or this show or, throughout the week of the many ND shows that there are out there, I think just about anybody would tell you that was the case, that Notre Dame football right now, like I just, I almost contemplated not doing this particular show because I just had a lot going on today and, didn't really plan this and, thought, well, if it's unplanned and off the cuff, it's usually not as good. And, I don't even really feel like doing a show anyway, to be quite honest with you. So I thought about not doing this show because I just don't know. I don't even know what to say at this point. As it sits, Notre Dame is, like I say, sitting at 4-3 with, not a lot to play for in a lot of respects because it's a result of 4-3 that Notre Dame fans have not experienced in quite some time. 7 Notre Dame fan out the window. Uncharted waters, it really is. But I also, I guess, would argue that there's plenty to play for in this particular instance because regardless of where you are in program building, regardless of where you are with the program, next year hinges on this year. Always. You look at it, you can look at any good program over the years, really. And you could say that, any championship program that kind of sprung on the championship scene had a program where they were, 9-3 the year before, the year before in the regular season, whatever, and then took the next step to competing for a college football playoff, competing for a national championship, all those things. So there's still plenty to play for in terms of gaining momentum for the next season, positive momentum, getting bowl eligible, getting extra practice time, getting some younger guys experience, showing that you can compete with the big boys of college football, because right now we haven't seen it, keeping the 2023 recruiting class together, attracting recruits, and, showing those recruits that are kind of on the fence about Notre Dame that Marcus Freeman is not just a good guy, not just a guy that daps up his players on the sidelines, but is also a bona fide football coach. And it's tough. It's tough right now because on one hand, Notre Dame has a difficult stretch of football games coming up, including Syracuse, Clemson, USC to end the year, Navy, and throw Boston College there as well. And so there's a lot to play for in terms of, it'll be interesting to see if Notre Dame can, now that they're going to play like a top tier talent again, to see if this team can get up and play against teams that are really good, and see if Notre Dame can be spoiler for some of these teams. That's where you've put yourself. That's what you have to play for at this point. So, I see people on here all the time. Oh, Notre Dame, their goals are out the window. Play Steve Angeli. Play, if there's upperclassmen that aren't doing it, don't play the upperclassmen. And to a certain extent, I agree. Look, don't get me wrong. Absolutely, I agree with those things. That, everybody should be held accountable. If you've listened to this show before, if you've listened to this podcast before, you've heard me come on here and say the accountability isn't where it needs to be at this point for Notre Dame. Okay. And I don't think a 23-point win over UNLV is going to change my feelings on that. I don't know. This isn't good enough. Okay. And so, while there is still a lot to play for, and that's good news. Okay. There's things to get up for before this season is over. There are big games on the slate. There are things that Notre Dame needs to make small short-term goals and small short-term changes to see if Notre Dame can play with the big boys with this outfit. Okay. This lineup, if you will. That's the good news. The bad news is the excitement level and the pulse of the fandom of this Notre Dame football team is non-existent. Non-existent. And here's evidence of this. Okay. I don't claim to toot my own horn. I don't claim to, be the biggest and most raw Notre Dame ball fan in the world. That's just, I don't know. But do I take Notre Dame football very seriously? Yes, absolutely. For those who don't know me, long, deep ties to Notre Dame. I'm a Subway alum myself, but I have plenty of family who have been Notre Dame fans, like close family, aunts, uncles, cousins that have been Notre Dame alums, that are Notre Dame alums, that are Notre Dame season ticket holders, that are, deep into this Notre Dame stuff. I was born into it. Thanks, Belden family, for this, by the way. Couldn't have picked, I live in Ohio. Couldn't have picked Ohio State for to be a fan of. I digress. I've been to Notre Dame countless times. I live in Ohio, but been to Notre Dame countless times. Some of my best memories of me and my dad are at Notre Dame Stadium. And, my listening to my dad, God rest his soul, complaining about Notre Dame coming out of the stadium, or going to a restaurant near South Bend and talking to other Notre Dame fans as we wait for a table about being frustrated with this or that, or, being in the stadium for the Bush Push. I mean, there's a lot of bad, but there's also a lot of good, that comes with being a Notre Dame fan. Okay. So I'm in this deep, is what I'm trying to tell you. I'm not some casual that watches Notre Dame whenever it's convenient for me to watch Notre Dame or when there's not a better game on. Okay. If Notre Dame's on and I'm near a TV, I'm watching Notre Dame. Let's put it that way. Yesterday was a different story. Okay. And as I listened to other, I guess you could say, Notre Dame shows talk about this particular game, I just said, yeah, that's where I'm at. And where I'm at is this. I had other engagements yesterday to watch during the Notre Dame live taping. Let's put it that way. And was I at all worried about missing the Notre Dame game yesterday? Absolutely not. In fact, I told a couple people, thank God I have something else to do. And I told the person who invited me, thank goodness you invited me, so I didn't have to stress out and watch Notre Dame today. That's where I'm at. That's literally where I'm at. And should Notre Dame care? Does anybody care? Really? No, they don't. But if I feel that way after, after this first 6 games before yesterday, if that's how I felt 6 games in, can't imagine how some of the people that didn't grow up with Notre Dame, that didn't grow up loving Notre Dame, that didn't have it just ingrained in them by family members to love Notre Dame, must just be sick of this. Gosh, Notre Dame won the first quarter 23-7 yesterday, and quite frankly, won the game 44-21. I get it. You're supposed to feel pretty good about 20-some point wins. And yet I just look at this situation and think missed opportunities galore, mismanaged team galore. I listen to other shows and the gloom and doom and all of that talk about how, Marcus Freeman's set up to fail. And I don't want to believe it. And, I don't want to think that this is, some of the conspiracy theories that people have about Notre Dame and how, Tommy Rees is a Jack Swarbrick guy and he's protected by Jack Swarbrick. They're never going to be able to fire him. And Tommy Rees is just, and Marcus Freeman is just handcuffed to Tommy Rees at this point, and he'll never be able to get rid of him. I don't want to believe those things. I don't. And I sit and I just think, oh my gosh, like how much more can people like me in this fan base take? How much more? How much more? And it's worse because, I get on here, I put my face on YouTube, and I talk about Notre Dame football, and, friends and family know that I talk about Notre Dame football, and occasionally they tune in, and occasionally I get another casual person that's like, hey, I didn't know you talked about Notre Dame. I watched your show last week, or I listened to your show last week. Like, that's really cool. And so they know I'm deep into this Notre Dame stuff. And then every time Notre Dame goes and lays an egg, I have to deal with it. And I'm tired of dealing with it, to be honest with you. Every time Notre Dame plays like this, whether it's a crappy win against a bad team, or they get beat, or they lose to Marshall, I have friends that change their fantasy football team names to We Are Marshall in our fantasy football league, and the googly-eyed pine trees because we lost to Stanford. Like this is what I've signed up for. And, it's my fault for making those decisions. It's my fault for that. But it's a disgrace at this point that, like, I, who've been a proud Notre Dame fan blindly for 31 years, now am, like, hiding my face in public because this football team is just a cluster. Just an absolute cluster. I don't know. And I don't have a ton of points to make today, particularly. I got on here to just record this show, invent for about 20 to 30 minutes. But I'll leave kind of with this thought. Okay. And again, if you're watching on YouTube, there's been, a few of you in here. If you want to leave a comment, that you agree with what I'm saying, you're indifferent with what I'm saying, that you disagree, by all means, I'll throw that comment up there. We've had a few viewers kind of hopping in and out as we've done this show live today. But yesterday was a particularly interesting day for Notre Dame football. Not only because of what Notre Dame football is, but because of what went on in other places. And here's what I mean. Okay. I'm gonna just say this bluntly and obviously. Okay. I still believe in Marcus Freeman. I still really, really, really like Marcus Freeman. I do. Okay. So let me make that very, very, very clear. Okay. As I said to one particular person who's not a Notre Dame fan, but is a college football fan and follows college football and is knowledgeable. I said to this person, I kind of thought in my heart of hearts, I knew in my heart of hearts that Notre Dame might take a little bit of a step back. Anytime there's a transitional period, it's to have just expected Marcus Freeman to come in to use this metaphor, to slide in the cockpit of this fighter jet and just have everything at his disposal and just be able to just kind of fly it and push buttons and everything was going to be hunky-dory. That was naive to me, even when Marcus Freeman was first hired, before we ever saw a snap of football under the Marcus Freeman era. Okay. So I said to this person, I think I expected Notre Dame to take a little bit of a step back. And this guy finished my sentence and said, yeah, but you probably didn't expect him to take a step back off a cliff. And that's where it feels like we're at right now. Now, again, all is not lost. All is not lost, because sitting at 4-3, you go out and you run the table and you beat Syracuse, Clemson, Navy, Boston College, and USC, and you finish this year 9-3. Throw this podcast out the window. Okay, this particular show out the window. You that's about what I expected the threshold for Notre Dame football to be at this point of the Marcus Freeman era. I'd have said 9-3. Okay, fine. Okay, we took a little step back, but we've got some good momentum going. And Brian Kelly is gone, and Marcus Freeman's a new guy, and Marcus Freeman's going to do those things that we thought Brian Kelly needed to do to take the next step, because Marcus Freeman's a different guy, and guys want to play for him, and the recruits want to go there, and hunky-dory. If you'd have said 9-3 at the end of the year, I'd have been like, fine, good. Co-sign, I'll sign off on that. Let's move on, okay? However, 9-3 right now, though a possibility, statistically, numerically is a possibility, doesn't feel like much of a possibility. Doesn't feel like is anywhere near the realm of possibility right now. Okay. Want to take a pause real quick and shout out my man D-Rock Irish. D-Rock has commented a couple times here. Lip service by the coaches, Ben. Stupid play calling week in and week out. This program is an embarrassment right now. Agree. And then hope is hanging in the balance for Marcus Freeman. Changes need to be made very soon, or we will lose several recruits. I don't see us running the table right now, hoping for 6-6 now. And that's kind of where I'm at, D-Rock. I mean, that really is not far off of my feelings. Okay. And like I say, I expected Marcus Freeman in the program under Marcus Freeman to maybe not look quite as good as the program under Brian Kelly, because anytime there's change, it takes a little bit of time to acclimate to change. Anytime somebody's doing a job for the first time, they're not going to do it perfectly the first time around. I understand. Okay. Believe me when I say I understand all that. Okay. But it does not have to look or be this bad. It does not have to feel this bleak. And here's the thing. Here's the other thing. Okay. Syracuse is real good at football this year. And Notre Dame, as bad as they are, is favored. Favored. I believe the line came out. Notre Dame's a 2-point favorite as it sits here Sunday night, 8:50, October 23rd, 2022. Notre Dame is favored to beat a ranked team and beat a ranked team in BYU earlier this season. I'm so confused by this team, man. I'm so confused. And the point that I was getting to here just a little bit ago was this, okay? It's interesting that Notre Dame right now has fans like me so apathetic to the point where I missed the live showing of a Notre Dame football game yesterday and just straight didn't care. You know, I didn't turn off all notifications and all that. I checked Twitter a time or two, checked the ESPN app a time or two to see what the score was, saw that Notre Dame was going to win, and said, I'll worry about Notre Dame tomorrow. That's literally where I was at. Watched the game today. Most of it ended up quickly fast forwarding through a lot of it because I knew what happened. A couple plays I wanted to see specifically. Might still go back and watch the whole game start to finish at some point throughout the week. But saw enough to come on here and record this particular podcast. And again, here's what I'll say. Brian Kelly at LSU won a game against a top 10 opponent yesterday, okay? And of course, the LSU fans are out in droves, and the people are out in droves. Maybe it wasn't Brian Kelly that was the problem. Maybe Brian Kelly's a pretty good coach after all. Maybe Notre Dame wishes they'd have done some things differently and kept Kelly and made him a legacy and kept Kelly in South Bend so that he would never want to leave. Maybe Notre Dame's the problem and Brian Kelly isn't. And maybe Brian Kelly is a genius and was always just hard capped by Notre Dame. That's what everyone wants to say, right? All these LSU fans are saying, oh, all the things that you salty Notre Dame fans have said are just incorrect. And Brian Kelly's a great coach. And Brian Kelly this and Brian Kelly that. And he's competing for a SEC championship in his first year. Is he really, though? I would debate that. But don't we wish we had Brian Kelly back? Do we not just, would we take Brian Kelly back for this? No, no. I cannot say with more resolve in my voice, heck no, I don't want Brian Kelly back. Okay. So, you know, and like I say, this has been said among Notre Dame fans. This has been said among LSU fans. This has been said among Notre Dame trolls. Anybody in between, okay? Brian Kelly wore out his welcome here, okay? Brian Kelly threw players under the bus, didn't recruit well, didn't hustle in recruiting. There's a whole lot of didn'ts, okay? If we had Brian Kelly today in 2022, is it possible that Notre Dame has lost one game and one game only at this point? Sure. Okay. But as I've said on this show before, I wasn't into the dodging bullets. Okay. That's what Brian Kelly did better than Marcus Freeman. He dodged bullets. Okay. He found a way that when Notre Dame's playing a clunker, he finds a way to win, and then you don't talk about it anymore. Okay. And here's the last point that I'll make. Okay. As we look at the problems with Notre Dame football, here are the things that we talk about. Okay. The quarterback room. Okay. Tyler Buchner, inexperienced, and in a game and a half didn't look wonderful. Okay. Didn't look wonderful. Looked better than Drew Pine. In my opinion, looked better than Drew Pine, but didn't look completely comfortable and looked, I don't know. And people always want to say, well, when Buchner got hurt and Pine came in and he got the kinks out against Cal and he started playing a little bit better against North Carolina and he played really well against BYU, maybe Notre Dame picked the wrong quarterback. No, okay. How do you know that Tyler Buchner would not be playing as well as Drew Pine played against BYU and against North Carolina. You don't, okay? Regardless, though, okay? Tyler Buchner was a Brian Kelly guy. After Tyler Buchner, here's the point that I'm in a roundabout way trying to make, okay? Who is at fault for Notre Dame's quarterback situation being as bad as it is right now? Should the backup quarterback be as limited, okay? Limited as Drew Pineby? Never in 10 million years, okay? Should it be possible that maybe the best player on the offensive side of the football in terms of skill positions, arguably the one with the highest upside, can't get on the field hardly because he doesn't understand what's going on? Whose problem is that? Who created those problems? I'll tell you, I'll name a couple of names. Tommy Rees, okay? If your offense is so intricate because you're the boy genius, right? You're the guy that's really smart and all that. If your offense is so stinking intricate that you can't get Tobias Merriweather on the field, but these other top of the line elite programs can find ways to get their best athletes, freshmen or not, on the field, okay? Who's in the wrong? Who's creating that problem? Okay, right now it falls a lot to Tommy Rees. Guess who hired Tommy Rees? Guess who picked Tommy Rees to be his quarterback coach and then signed off on Tommy Rees to be his offensive coordinator? Brian Kelly did, right? Brian Polian, okay, might be the absolute worst special teams coach I've ever seen in my life, okay? Maybe a great guy, okay? Maybe a great guy, maybe a good recruiter, terrible special teams coordinator, okay? And the knock on Brian Kelly the whole time was he brings his friends, he keeps his friends, and it's the good old boys club in that coaching room, okay, on those coaching staffs, right? And Brian Kelly is the one who left the quarterback room the way it was, who left the wide receiver room the way it was, and signed off on all of it, okay? And we want to talk about how great of a coach Brian Kelly was, and we want Brian Kelly back. Does Brian Kelly know in-game X's and O's? Yeah. Sure. In that way, he is a great football coach, okay? And I was a Brian Kelly apologist for much of his career at Notre Dame. I really was, okay? But to say this would be way better under Brian Kelly is just a joke, okay? Again, I don't think that 6-1 with 2 narrow wins over teams like Marshall and Stanford is a whole lot better than 4-3 with 2 losses to those schools, okay? I just don't. The line between those two things are not, it's a fine line and it's not a very thick one. Okay. So I don't know. To say that Brian Kelly, and I had somebody the other day talking about LSU's quarterback, and off the top of my head, live, I can't remember LSU's quarterback's name. I should have researched this before I came on, but this person was talking about LSU's quarterback taking a big leap this year from last year to this year, Orgeron to Brian Kelly, and who is to be commended for that leap. And he says it's the coaching. It's the only difference is the coaching. And yet I watched Notre Dame, okay, not develop a single quarterback to their fullest potential under Brian Kelly. And maybe it's because they didn't recruit quarterbacks at their fullest potential. That's another point to make. And then the holdover from the Brian Kelly era, Tommy Rees, has not even won quarterback in the 2023 class. Can't get one. Can't get one. Okay. Has a really good one in 2024 in CJ Carr. Maybe he becomes the quarterback of the class of 2023. But right now, Tommy Rees, what are you doing right now to show me that things are ever going to get better? I can't see it. I don't see it. Okay. And that is the most disturbing thing about all of this. Okay. Gonna pause right here, talk about a couple comments. I'm also, I've had about 20 listeners on for the most part here the last few minutes, in and around 20, let's put it that way. So I'm going to throw up the call-in button, the call-in number, I guess, on the screen. That number is 330-333-2042. If you'd like to call in and have your voice heard on this particular show, we like to do that from time to time. We've had some people, talking in the comments. If you want to take some of those comments and talk about them with me, have a quick discussion, I'd love to have you on here. So if you want to hit that call-in line, it is open at this point. Again, I always say this. I'm a one-man show here. I don't screen these calls in any way, shape, or form. So if you call in, you're going to have to sort of bear with me just a little bit. But we'll get you on. So if D-Rock, if you're out there, you want to call in, or David, or anybody that's in the comment section, by all means, looking forward to hearing from some of you. If it doesn't work out for you guys tonight, we'll get them the next time. So again, I'll take a time to kind of reset here. This is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I don't want to say I'm the Notre Dame guy, but I'm one of the guys that does a lot of Notre Dame commentary over here, that produces a lot of Notre Dame content. We do these shows live oftentimes. And so if there are people out here who would like to participate in that live show, make sure that you are subscribing to the YouTube channel, hit the thumbs up, hit the bell, know when we go live, know when we're scheduling a live, so that you can come in and participate in these, the way we've had callers on other shows and those types of things. Again, don't just subscribe, or subscribe to both. Subscribe to Mark Rogers TV, but also find the Notre Dame specific YouTube channel. There are two separate channels for those things. So go to markrogerstv.com. It'll take you to a YouTube page. Scroll on over, find the Notre Dame YouTube channel, subscribe to it. Then you know when we're posting content. So getting to a couple comments here. D-Rock says, I lost your comment, D-Rock. I apologize. We've got a call coming in. I believe this is my boy Luis. So give me a second to get Luis on here. Hi, you're on with Ben on the voice of college football. Who am I speaking to?
Hey, Ben, this is D-Rock.
Oh, hi, this is D-Rock. All right, I saw the caller ID and I thought it was somebody else, but thanks for calling, D-Rock. How are you?
Hey, well, things could be better, but, for the first time, Ben, I'm not saying for the first time, but Ben, I think for you to lose patience on this program says a lot, because you always look at the glass half full. I think I look at it half empty. I have been for some time, but very frustrating to go ahead. I did not watch most of the game. I tuned in with about 2 minutes left to go in the third quarter, and I saw the last 22 plays resulting in 20 consecutive runs up the middle with two pitch outs to Lindsey, and that was the offense. And I just don't see any changes in this, and I wanted your input on why Freeman is putting up with Tommy Rees. I see no changes here, and it's been like this now for weeks, and it's rather pathetic. Your thoughts, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I have a few thoughts on that, so kind of bear with me as I parse through this. I mean, so the question's been asked to Marcus Rees. I believe they asked after Stanford. The people with access said, they asked Marcus Freeman, was Tommy Rees, like, they didn't put it in these terms, but they basically asked him, was Tommy Rees your choice for offensive coordinator? And of course, Marcus Freeman said yes. Like, I was totally comfortable with Tommy Rees. I'm totally comfortable with the offense. He says all of the coach speak things. And I think maybe even you referenced that in the chat when we first started the show. I really think that Tommy Rees was kind of part of the package deal that when Jack Swarbrick sat down with Marcus Freeman, Jack said, hey, I'd like you to be the head coach, but I'd really also like Tommy Rees to be the offensive coordinator. He's a Notre Dame guy. And I think Marcus Freeman had to agree to it, but I think it was kind of like, hey, if you're the head coach, this is the way we want to go. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Don't go against this, or maybe you're not the head coach type of a situation. So at the very least, right. I think Marcus Freeman was sold on it. And it would be, it's a sell that makes sense, right? You're getting rid of a lot of guys that were Notre Dame guys. It makes sense to have a holdover or two. And Tommy Rees being a Notre Dame guy makes a lot of sense. So, I believe Marcus Freeman when he says he was comfortable with it. I also think Marcus Freeman was smart enough at the time to not say, no, I'm not going to be the head coach here if Tommy Rees is going to be the offensive coordinator. If that kind of makes sense. I read into Marcus Freeman's frustration that I see on the sidelines a lot is, what am I supposed to do about this right now? Because I've been put in a bad spot. And so I really think, I really do, that Marcus Freeman is sitting here thinking like, man, how do I survive this until I can make a change? And or am I even allowed to make the change? Or do I have to wait for Tommy to try to move on his own? As I've said to many people, if I'm Marcus Freeman, the best thing that I think that I can do is like write Tommy Rees a very nice recommendation letter so that he can go get a job in the NFL or whatever. I don't know, but I have a hunch that Marcus is trying to not tick off the higher ups by throwing Rees the bus and essentially making him the scapegoat for a lot of these things. That's just how I feel about it.
Well, I agree with you, Ben, and I don't normally watch the NFL, but today I watched several NFL games, and it reminds me of Notre Dame games. And I'm if you give me just a couple of seconds on this, I'll tell you why.
Go ahead.
From a defensive standpoint, terrible tackling by these NFL so-called professionals. I see that in our team. And as far as play calling, it's predictable. It's like 2 runs up the middle, 3rd and long, throw the pass for a screen or a short down the middle. No, how should I say this? No variety in the play calling. And I watched, so when I saw NFL games today, it reminded me of Notre Dame games. When I sit there and watch Notre Dame games, it reminds me of the NFL. Then I flip the stations and I watch Tennessee throwing the ball all over the field. I see Alabama throwing the ball all over the field. South Carolina even throwing the ball all over the field. And I'm saying, what is our problem?
Mm-hmm.
And why? And I hate to say this, but Tommy Rees is hiding up in that press box. I'd have I got to watch my language here. His butt down, his butt down on the sidelines with me to converse and talk face to face with his quarterback, and have another analyst or have another coach up in that press box, because it just I don't know if you agree with me on it, but I see NFL written all over this. I think Tommy wants to go ahead and get in the NFL. His dad has been in and out of the NFL with connections. I don't think he's made any bones about wanting to go to the NFL, and he's trying to put a square peg in a round hole and trying to make these players into NFL players at the college level. And I don't see it on these other teams. And Al Golden, as much as I thought that he was going to be good at, at what he was doing, I'm having doubts with him. I saw how UNLV started going up and down the field yesterday, and the tackling was poor. So, those are my thoughts in a 2-minute nutshell.
Yeah, you hit on a couple things I want to talk about real fast, and then I'll let you go here. But you talked about the tackling. I'm with you there. I think that's it's a major difference in football altogether. Over the last, I don't know how many years, over the last 5 to 10 years, I think a lot of that comes from, they just don't teach tackling like they used to, because everybody's worried about getting hurt. Okay. You don't want to lose in practice. So we're not even going to tackle in practice. We're going to go over schemes in practice. And the only times they tackle are during short periods in practice and then in the games. I think it's been, like it or hate it. I think most people hate it, but I think it's a microcosm of that football, the concussion stuff and having players get hurt in practice, and the best ability is availability, I guess you could say. I don't know that I don't know what the answer is to coaching better tackling, because I just don't think it's coached, if that makes sense. I think it's now all about physicality and just being tough, and not the fundamentals of tackling. I think that's a big thing in football, not just for Notre Dame, but in football in general. And then to your point, to Tommy Rees, you said it best. I think that, Tommy might have his eyes on the NFL, and I wouldn't put it past Tommy Rees to be a really, really good NFL coach, because in my opinion, I think part of what's the disconnect here is that Tommy Rees has all these really great ideas in his head, and it's some of these schemes and things are just above the players that he's coaching. I mean, the coaching saying is that it's about Jimmys and Joes, not X's and O's. Well, somebody better tell that to Tommy Rees, because I think Tommy Rees is all X's and O's, and then just doesn't use his personnel the right way, and doesn't have necessarily the personnel to do his X's and O's, and tries to fit those X's and O's, force those X's and O's onto his personnel. And I think it should be the exact opposite. That's my biggest thing. I think once in a while you see some really good stuff from Tommy, and half the time it's missed by his quarterback, essentially, and he's responsible for that, by the way. But I think Tommy knows what he's doing in terms of how to call a game. I just don't think he knows how to call a game with the current personnel that he has. And like I say, I might be way off base on that, but that's my feeling.
No, and I don't want to dominate the show here, so I'm going to close with this thought. Someone on another podcast said this, and it's 100% true. You got Tommy sitting up in the press box, figuring out calculus when it's simple math.
Yep.
When you load the box up, when the defense and I saw a couple times in that last quarter, UNLV loaded up the box, had 8 guys up in the box, even 9, possibly even 10. And they go with a 12 personnel and keep running the ball up in the middle and chipping away.
And then people blame the offensive line, and they say the offensive line is terrible. Yep.
Yeah. Actually, the offensive line has been improving as the week's been going on. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
Oh, I think
they go ahead and and they've loaded the box. The defense loads the box, and Reese continues to run it up the middle, and then goes ahead and throws on third down. So, yeah, it's very frustrating. I think that the Syracuse line, which they're all returning, the offensive line is all returning, we're going to have issues with them, and that's not even going into the Clemson game. But I appreciate your show. I appreciate, I guess they say misery loves company, because sometimes I wonder it's just, if it's all about me and not taking a look at all this. But after a while, it just grows on you. And I appreciate the time that you took listening to me, and also Bending as well. So you have yourself a good evening, and I hope we can turn this thing around before we go up to the Dome.
Absolutely. Go Irish. Thanks for the call.
Okay, go Irish. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. That was D-Rock, longtime listener, a couple-time caller. So thanks, D-Rock, for that. Good, insightful stuff, as always. That's what we want here, okay? That's why we do this. So as we continue to grow this show, I hope that we get more callers just like D-Rock that are guys that come back and have their thoughts heard, And you don't have to agree with me either. I know that D-Rock and I kind of were singing the same tune there. If you're out there and you think I'm an idiot, come on, call on in. Okay, the number's on the screen, 330-333-2042. If you're worried, that's not my actual cell phone number. Okay, so you're not going to call me in the middle of the week and just be able to, to give me an earful. I mean, you can leave a voicemail on that number and I'll hear it eventually. But getting to it, just a couple comments here. And as I wait maybe for another caller, if somebody else wants to call in, we've had a couple comments going on. No, some of these I don't even want to put on the screen. The troll sniper says, who hired Brian Van Gorder and was forced to fire him? Yeah, that would be Brian Kelly too. D-Rock, before he came on here, I think he made this comment that Tobias Merriweather will move on if Freeman doesn't get a handle on this crap show. No, I don't want Shady BK back. I don't think Merriweather will move on, to be honest with you. I think they'll eventually find a way to use him a little bit better. But I got to imagine he's frustrated. And if you read between the lines and you follow the right people on Twitter, you kind of know that he's frustrated, and other people around him are as well. This team looks better on paper last year than last year's 11-1 record, but had 3-point wins over Toledo, FSU, and Virginia Tech. Like I say, Brian Kelly, bullet dodger, professional bullet dodger. Okay. Is this team a whole lot different than those teams? I don't think it is. I really don't. I just think that in this particular instance, Brian Kelly, with a lot of years of coaching under his belt, found a way to win some of those ugly games. And there were a lot of them under Brian Kelly. There were a lot of them that Notre Dame had to squeak out, that they quite frankly got lucky in some instances. So I don't think this team's really a lot different. I truly don't. It looks worse because the loss column has a bigger number in it. I don't know. But Notre Dame has looked this way under Brian Kelly at times. The difference is, like I say, Brian Kelly's experience allowed him to, take the headset from Tommy Rees and call some different plays, or hey, Tommy, call this one, or give me this, or here's what I want, or whatever. And that was just the difference in a couple of wins, a couple of bounces, a couple of big plays that Notre Dame just frankly isn't getting right now. And I think Marcus Freeman's going to get that. I think he'll get there. I mean, gosh, like, the guy has never hardly had a hand in the offense at all. As he becomes more comfortable and well-rounded as a coach, I think he's going to get there. It's just that it's frustrating to watch those growing pains unfold in front of us. And you expect someone like Tommy Rees, who has now had a couple of years of call plays under his belt, to be better and not have to have his head coach tell him this is what we need right now, or call this, or let's look at this matchup, or let's look at this person, whatever. Because Brian Kelly was undoubtedly doing that, right? Does anybody doubt that? So that's the difference right now in this football team, is that Marcus Freeman just doesn't have that from a head coaching standpoint at this point. But you expect an offensive coordinator that has as much experience now as Tommy Rees does to not have to have somebody like Brian Kelly, or, in this case, Marcus Freeman, tell him, we got to go away from that, or do this or that, or whatever the situation is. Just catching up on a couple of comments. Just sort of looks like there's a couple of things that we've already talked about in here. David Solomon, thanks. You've commented a few times, and I've noticed and appreciated them. The amazing thing is we still have a top 3 recruiting class with no quarterback in the class. Yep. My point exactly. David, again, what we're seeing on offense is not going to change this season. Yeah, I don't really think it is either. The change I'd like to see, by the way, and I've recorded here for close to 50 minutes now, so I'm gonna probably call it quits. Got any last minute callers who want to call in? Yeah. If Notre Dame, here's the change, okay, that I want to see in Notre Dame, okay? I just mentioned it, okay? You would expect, Marcus, and, timeout, rewind, okay? At the beginning of this year, if I had told you the offense is going to underperform through 6 or 7 games, would anybody have been all that surprised? Okay. Is it all that surprising right now that the offense is a little behind the 8 ball, considering you have a head coach that's a defensive minded coach? I don't think it is. Okay. Marcus Freeman is not an offensive coach. He's not an offensive guy. Okay. What you need, and the change that Notre Dame needs to have, in my opinion, is you can't have a head coach that is an offensive minded. I'm sorry, that it lacks offensive pedigree. Let's put it that way. So let me start this over. You can't have a head coach that is not an offensive head coach, a defense first guy, a guy that's worked on the defensive side of the ball, played defense in college, coached linebackers, been a defensive coordinator, and that's it. And also have an offensive coordinator who's still relatively inexperienced. And I don't care how long Tommy Rees has worked on the offensive side of the football. He's still an inexperienced offensive coordinator, because I do truly believe that Brian Kelly held his hands while he was there. And therefore, we're seeing Rees come into his own as well, without somebody over top of him in the offensive headset. Let's just put it that way. And I hope that makes sense. So, what Notre Dame needs to do moving forward, okay, is go out and get a guy that has called plays for a long time. I don't care where, okay? Like, I don't care if he's the biggest name in the world. I don't care what someone who is comfortable calling plays, done it independently, maybe been a head coach before. That would be a nice bonus. Somebody who has called plays before would be my pick to lead Notre Dame's offense. And somebody who has a lot of pedigree, a lot of experience, an older guy who can come call the plays. That's just what Notre Dame needs. Okay. You have a defensive head coach. You can't have an underexperienced offensive coordinator. That's just my thought process here. So I don't know. That's who that is right now, sitting here on October 23rd. I don't know. But as old D-Rock, and I'll kind of finish with this, if I'm Marcus Freeman, the best thing I think I can do is write Tommy Rees a really great recommendation letter, say the guy's of genius. We didn't necessarily have the players at Notre Dame to run all the things he wanted to run, but in the NFL, he would be great. Get him out of here, make it an amicable breakup, send him on to the NFL to be a quarterback's coach or an assistant offensive coordinator or a passing game coordinator or whatever, so that he can climb the NFL ranks and go get somebody who, even if it's at a lesser school, who has called offense for a long time, is comfortable in the offense that they call, and knows how to scheme a game plan. That's what I want. So again, if you guys have stuck with us the whole 54 minutes, I appreciate you. If you've tuned in on YouTube, this is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Your host, Ben Belden, do most of the Notre Dame stuff, especially in season over here. Yeah, like I say, take care of most of the Notre Dame stuff. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's on the screen at RealBelden, BELDEN. And if you're finding this audio, Under the Dome podcast for the audio, they're pretty much on any audio listening platforms. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. Lots of comments here. Pretty decent viewership. Tell your friends, okay? If you like the show, I can't stress that enough. Tell your friends. Bring them to this show. We like that interaction. D-Rock, thanks for the call. Love that. Keep calling. Goes for D-Rock and anybody else. So appreciate you guys. hopefully we have some good Notre Dame football to talk about in the near future. I'm not holding my breath. I said that last week, and I was right. The goal, by the way, before I get out of here, the goal, by the way, is to do these Sunday night shows, to try to get a middle of the week show, hopefully on Wednesday nights, get some consistency, keep this thing rolling, and really grow this thing. So subscribe on YouTube. Let's get our numbers up. The listenership on the podcast was good last week. We'll do that again. So liking the way things are going. Let's continue to grow this thing. Go Irish.